I'd like to report a crime that hasn't happened yet. Have you seen the movie Back to the Future? Basically, I'm living that movie right now, which is how I know there's gonna be a murder tonight.
Hate time travel movies. They never make any sense.
I want to talk about that meta nature to this film, because obviously there's like some references to like Back to the Future and Scream. But what was the balance for you in finding that in such a genre mashup of a film?
Totally. I'm so happy that you appreciate that. Like the genesis of that was essentially like, if me and you had to go back in time and tried to convince people that we were from the future, like, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a physicist, like I would not have like a chalkboard scene moment. Like I can't break it down for you, but I can like use our like pop culture references as a touchstone. And so that was the whole thing. So it was like, I could say, you know, if we went back to 87, Back to the Future has existed for 2 years. I could say, have you seen Back to the Future? Yeah. And try and relate on that level. And then, you know, she throws in like, yeah, Scream references and like Avengers Endgame that are, it's like too late for like, nobody knows what she's talking about because it hasn't come out yet. But still, like just using our like cultural touchstones as a way to kind of communicate time travel rules, I think that's what I would do, you know?
I want to talk about creating a realistic 80s atmosphere, because I think there's a lot of tropes that you can fall into when it comes to like picking an era like that that's so like, you know, distinct.
Yeah, I think something we talked about with Nahnatchka a lot was it shouldn't feel like a Duran Duran music video. It shouldn't be what we remember the 80s as, and it's sort of like, how do we go, you know, I think that's a great subversion of the idea of nostalgia too, where you're just like, what did it actually kind of feel like? And so John Hughes was much more the visual reference than just like neon and giant massive hair and like sort of this like caricature of the 80s, which is not what people living in that time experience. So just sort of like using that as the way into the visual look of the whole film, while still being able to have some of those color and neon flourishes, but not making that the world you're living in.
Like you barely notice it, but if you look around at the cars are 80s, 70s, 60s, because that's what people would be driving at the time. It wouldn't just be like every car off the lot from 1987. It's like people would be having cars 10, 20 years older.
What were the conversations of like how you wanted the Sweet 16 killer to kind of intimidate and terrorize this town?
For me, it was really important that those kill sequences all feel like terrifying, you know, like all feel like that we don't check our swing with that. You know, that's not like part of the comedy. It's like there's a real threat, there's real violence, and because I think that helps the stakes of your movie. You know, like if it felt like kind of jokey and nobody really cared, I'd be like, if she, whatever, you know. So it's like, oh no, this guy is out there. He's a menace. He's dangerous. He's a psychopath, and he's killing women. And I think really wanting the audience to be like, oh my God, you know, it just helps you root for Jamie. It helps you, you know, get invested, I think, in these characters. And so then at the end, when she, you know, the time travel element, it's like, did it work? You know, did she change the course of events, you know, in her life? And so, you know, when she's running to her house, you're like, hopefully. Big
shout out to Liz Kay, the production designer on this movie, who took on the challenge of creating this world and on a very limited budget, you know, and really delivered, from the amusement park to the Gravitron to all the houses, and just making sure everything felt lived in. Like Liz drove that. You know, I'd say the biggest outside place we worked with was Alterian, Tony Gardner, who did the mask design and made the mask and really went deep into the mask rabbit hole with us to like bring that killer to life.
A few things about her. One is that she would just sort of reconceive of things to help fit production. So for instance, the amusement park takes place not in, but next to giant amusement park. And then she built and brought rides to it so that you can see a roller coaster and a big drop in the background. Like those were there on set, but everything else was actually us that we owned and controlled on the day. So that's how she kind of like did that. And then the other thing about her I love is that she knows when to get into the minutia. So when it came to those dioramas, she like had her team working on sort of the macro big picture stuff. And she was like in there tweaking, adding, doing all the like diorama stuff herself, because she knew just like how important the intricacies of that were going to be.
The thing that I'm really curious about is the Everything That's Different notebook. I'm wondering, how much did you guys fill that out in production design? What did art department put in there that you specifically wanted? And, you know, not all that stuff will show on screen, obviously, but was it full?
It was pretty full. You know, we had stuff about her family, we had stuff about her friends, you know, stuff that we've showed at the end and, you know, in the end credit sequence. But then we had, you know, and again, like we couldn't go too far down, but this would be actually a great element to like add like as a supplement to the movie, because we had a whole section that was all dedicated to Harry Styles for some reason. I don't know why. Like me and the art department got obsessed with Harry Styles as it relates to the timeline and how that would change him and his career. So yeah, there was a whole section about Harry Styles.
Just think, maybe if she did do blowjobs, she'd still be alive.
Yeah, let's not make that the lesson. 80s weed sucks. This is just dirt. Look at all these twigs. I could give you a gummy this big that has 100 times more weed than this.